Hello and welcome to Awakening Your Queen. And today I have a super special guest. I will be interviewing the amazing Dr. Leticia Nieto. She's a friend of mine for 35 years. Our paths have intertwined. Leticia co-wrote, lead wrote this amazing book called Beyond Inclusion, Beyond Empowerment. It's a developmental approach to liberation for all. Beautiful body of work. Highly recommend you check that out. And Leticia is also a psychotherapist, but even more alive for her these days is psychodrama. So Leticia has received the highest level of certification in psychodrama. So she's a trainer, educator, and practitioner, and does the most amazing alchemy of transformation with individuals and groups that I've ever seen. It's just amazing, beautiful work. So, and besides that, as you can see from her background or backdrop, Leticia is just irrepressibly creative and brilliant, and I'm honored to have her here today to talk about the Queen. So we don't have, I don't have an outline for this. We're just diving in and letting curiosity and the flow take us wherever it wants to take us today. So I'm just curious, just how does this archetype of the Queen land for you? You've heard me talk about it a little bit, and it's become sort of the foreground of my work. And I'm just curious how you hold that energetic and the potential in your own work with your clients and in the culture. So that's a very general,
That's great.
bring it on.
I've been so grateful that you've been exploring that because I do think that it's easy in many environments to mm, gloss over, suppress, ignore this dimension of the feminine.
Mm,
A little bit too quick to kind of run into the crone uh, vibe of, seeking for young women to first please, then care, and then become wise. And that shorthand has felt problematic to me for a long time.
mm,
And so I've been grateful that you've been expanding this lens. And I know that this is part of what you think about, but for me, the queen has a couple of different strong anchors, and I'll name them, and then maybe we can go into them. One is about taking one's place at the center of one's own life
mm,
and thinking of how an axis of alignment makes things move better, right? Instead of a wobbly top,
mm,
that
mm,
something about that alignment is really crucial for societal transformation to come home to the center, and to demonstrate that, I guess that kind of cadence or way of moving, way of walking from center, moving from center and not being off kilter or out of center, but going from center and then moving from there to out. So it brings up for me somatic training from my early experience as a dance student, just what it takes to find that center, both in ballet and in flamenco, and in traditional Mexican dance.
mm,
This is kind of the point of most everything that you do is you're moving from that grounded, anchored, elevated place, and then you nourish the world, right? But
mm,
you're not caring for the world. You're not mothering the world. You're
mm,
not responding to need. You are bringing forth the bounty by your alignment. So that is one element. Um, and then another part of that is the wildness of that, the wilderness, wildness. Um, I had a dream when I was young. I don't remember how old I was, maybe my early 20s. And it was a recurring dream in which I saw myself maybe more at my age now. I'm 60. So I saw myself at an age that I couldn't identify, but well beyond the years I was then. And in this dream, I'm in a place like a hut or something out of town, but not far out of town, but at the edge enough to be surrounded by the wild.
Mm,
And I'm moving into town and I'm walking with this cornucopia basket and walking up to each person and handing them the correct thing.
mm,
Um, and so I had that image for a long time, and then I had a revisit of that dream not long ago, in which I was no longer going into the town, but rather there were people coming to meet me midway
oh,
to encounter, uh, and they knew what they needed, and so they would ask for it.
mm.
And I expect there'll be another dream in which I don't leave the hut. So this in between place, this wild meets the not wild place,
Mm.
is one of the anchors for the queen in my view. My girl cat is going a little crazy right now, so we'll just know that there might be some of this happening when she lands on the desk, and you maybe can hear her. So I don't know if that's connected to this conversation or not, but she wasn't doing it before, so she's doing it now.
You're invoking the wildness.
Yeah, she's named Sosa for Mercedes Sosa, who I also think of as an important queen in music.
Mm. Yeah, I appreciate both of those pieces. One, this vertical centering, and then this intimacy contact um, with the wild edge. And wow, what beautiful dreams. I remember having a dream also similar of leaving the village, going to a river, going underwater, slaying the dragon demon under the water, and then coming back and becoming a weaver. So there's something about this not being referenced. Like we're not using the culture to reference who we are and our value and our offering, that something becomes self-referential and it's also embedded
Mhm.
somehow in land and animal and element.
Yeah. Self-determining, but not from the little self, right? Not from the ego self, but from the sacred center that is our ultimate identity.
Mm,
Not an identity that's ascribed, not an identity that is formed, but an identity that is finally recognized
mm,
as one with the core of the earth and the center of the universe and the fullness of all that is, right? That's where this is sourced.
mm,
So the cultural references, they don't fall away, but they become instrumental. Um,
mm,
the way that a person plays an instrument, there is fluency with the culture and the ability to enter it and engage it. But there's also a recognition of the limitations of anything made, anything that's made or shaped in cultural ways. A project is coming to mind that I've been involved with, so I'll just name it. I've been working with Corinne Bell from Rooted on a project called Belonging. Well, we call it lots of things, but it's about belonging ambiguity.
mm,
Uh, Sometimes we call it the Where Do I Belong project for people of mixed race or mixed ancestry or mixed national origin, exploring racial questions. So still examining what is this othering that happens And what does it mean to be in some in-between place with that, some mixed place with that? And I also feel like the Queen speaks to that, to this
Mm,
borderland or the Nepantla place, the place in between.
mm,
So my dream kind of, connects me there. I don't belong, but it's not, I don't belong. It's I don't belong, and I belong in a broader way because I can belong more by not belonging. And also, I claim. I
So
don't
that
belong, I
came.
claim.
Mm. That sounds like a really big angle difference. Say more about claiming versus belonging.
Yeah, it's a way of working with belonging to say to someone, you belong with me. I see you. So here I think about Loretta J. Ross, who says, I mean, this is not a quote, not a word for word quote, but something like recognize any amount of coalition that could be possible with anyone,
Mm,
right? So where is my point of coalition, the Venn diagram of coalition with anyone I encounter? And to not be ridiculous about it. Of course, there are people with whom I would find very little common ground, not enough common ground to build on.
mhm,
That's true. Um, but if I look for a really huge overlap, especially if I look for a perfect overlap, I'm going to be very alone. So anywhere from, I don't know, 20% to 80% is good coalition, and that's almost everyone. There are going to be some people that I'll have more than 80% coalition with, or coalition potential with, and there are going to be a few people with whom I just will be able to find no ground. But I think part of the queen is a recognition that wherever I am
mm,
is a place for building coalition.
mm,
And we overlap a little, or we overlap a lot. Um, but let's not quibble over what we disagree about if we have some things we agree about.
mm,
So there's an efficacy or efficiency or effectiveness that is there. Uh, and that's what I mean by the instrumental aspect of the culture
mm,
is can we speak the language of coalition in generous ways for the sake of the common good?
mhm,
And otherwise, waiting for that perfect alignment seems unwise.
mhm, mhm. And young.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So part of how I'm conceiving of queenhood is one of the lenses is a developmental lens.
Hmm.
And you alluded to being taken care of and then mother taken care of and then this possibility of um, engaging the world from that centered place. And then you said that centered place also actually is grounded or sourced by the capital S self or the expanded identity that's beyond the local ego. And then this coalition thing of connecting and belonging. I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit about your understanding of the developmental pathways or challenge, whether what we need to be able to grow into, what's the growth process to be able to do that coalition, right? The relatedness, this is mutuality, and the Trillium Awakening path is mutuality. And then also the grounded in source. So what's the
Mhm.
developmental?
That's a big question. I mean, I generally just think in terms of an ever expanding
Hmm.
funnel, like spiral,
Yeah.
um, that dances between the perceived attachment and differentiation, that dance, attachment and differentiation as the two, if you will, two sides of that. But from above or below, it would be circular. So
Hmm.
not really. the illusion of attaching and differentiating. It's kind of like that's the dance step, but the dance is
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
wholeness dance. And I've been working for a long time with the idea of range versus stage. So range, the vocal range, the breadth, and that um, we contain all ourselves. So the queen is not the maiden. The queen is still the maiden, and the queen is still the mother. Um, and also beyond that, but through that, through those. So there's a fulfillment of the earlier organizations that continues to be integrated so that it's not versus, right? It's not the queen versus the mother, like these things are in conflict with each other,
Mm-hmm.
or the queen versus the maiden, that the maiden is sacrificed and the queen is never sacrificed. It's really not like that. More of an integrative perspective of befriending and hosting. So I think of that, hosting the maiden and the virgin and hosting the mother and all the mothering, um, as part of that claiming this too is me. And so moments can be very nourishing and very fresh and alive and passionate and all the things. Um, Nothing is left behind. Even the very young child is not left behind, but
Mm-hmm.
still here, maybe even more here than before. So this is part of that claiming and in belonging is yes, and you too are welcome here. And nothing is discarded.
Yeah, no exile.
No exile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. And the shadow side too of all, as we integrate, the more light the what is that? The brighter the light, the deeper the shadow. So the shadow aspects are also very vividly here in the queen. She casts a pretty deep shadow.
Mm-hmm.
The integration is not one of reduction of the shadow, but of owning and taking responsibility for the fullness of that golden shadow and dark shadow, all the
Right.
aspects. Hmm.
Right. So if part of um, expanding our range of being to include queenness, part of what I associate is not just self-referential and being able to relate. Um, there's a quality of power of being not wobbly. There's
Yeah,
something
unmessable with.
unmessable with. Yeah, that's a word.
I mean, I think I learned it from someone else, and the person's name is not coming to me right now.
Mhm.
If I find it, I'll let you know. But it's not untouchable or
Right.
unbreakable.
Mm.
But there is a quality in a post-traumatic growth lens. It's a quality of even better than before the assault,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
more integrated as a result of the assault. Not whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger, therefore bring on the assaults, but more growth
Mhm.
made possible, more surface area made possible because of the challenges and the difficulties and the dehumanization and the pain and suffering, all of that. So yes,
Right.
unmessable.
There's a fierceness,
Mm.
for me anyway, required to assert my value, right? To have pulled it back from the way that I was shamed as a child, especially from a patriarchal perspective and made less than. So there's been for me a fierceness to say, this is me and this is, I don't know, it's not valid, but uh,
Yeah.
just reveling in my own beauty. Doesn't mean I don't have shadow, but there's some sort of belonging to myself.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
That's part of me.
Fierce, but not defensive.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. More matter of fact.
Hmm.
Just, lava.
Lava.
No, no agenda. Just relentless flow of fire that will find a way,
Mm.
right? Cannot really be stopped. Um, yeah. So I'm thinking of the matter of factness of nature, just doing what it's doing at any time. The water flooding, the lava. It's kind of liquid and also fierce.
Mm.
No battle in it.
Hmm.
Defense, just fact. So not very entangled in the making the point
Mm.
of worth, for
Hmm.
example.
It's not arguing for itself. It's just,
No,
mhm.
the boundary setting is also very matter of fact.
Yeah.
This is just where that edge is. If anything, the boundary setting is just in case, like if someone is not seeing it, just like, hey, here's that line. So you know, not I am making the line.
Hmm. Right. So all of this makes me think of your developmental model for target membership, right? Where there's the empowerment musculature of
Mhm.
taking the elbows and creating space and claiming, but then there's the post-oppressive
That's
stance of
strategy of centering.
recentering. And when you were talking about the centering of source and um, what was the word that someone
Unmessable life.
unmessable with? Yeah, and I remember you telling me a story um, of who was that? Oh God, I could see her face. I'm not trying her name, but she was hosting a dinner. I forget
Oh,
the American woman, and she just went like that and didn't have to say anything because she was so centered and sourced and
right. It's a
matter of
kind of
factness of her being and her power.
an accountable form of compassion or a compassionate form of accountability. Uh,
Hmm. Hmm.
it still has care in it, but
Hmm.
it's not mothering,
It's
right?
not coddling.
It's not coddling. It's not, listen here, come over here. This behavior is not okay. I'm going to tell you why, and I'm going to ask you, please, to correct. It's not. It's just,
Hmm. It was
you can
Maya
do better.
Angelou.
Yeah, you can do better. I
Yeah.
know you can do better. I've seen you do better. I'm just working with a client last week, and we were playing around with um, holding this compassionate accountability in the context of microaggression or microassault, where the one who was on the receiving end of the microassault says to the one who carried out the microassault or microaggression and says, um, I've seen you, I know you, and I know that you care about dignity
Mm.
and you're interested in holding people well. So I invite you to look at what happened just there. It's fierce,
Hmm.
but it's accountable to what you've yourself have said you wanted to be and what you've demonstrated. It's not you need to be who I want you to be, or you need to correct in a direction that I'm determining. Rather, it's you've you've demonstrated who you are when you are at more choice and at more freedom, and something got you there, um, and operated through you in a way that I know you're not okay with, and you may not have seen it. So take a look. I'm doing this on your behalf, not mine. It's not for me. I don't need to point this out. I know it. I recognized it. I saw it come down. But the accountability is because we work together or we have a relationship. Here's the invitation. In that moment, you were outside of alignment with what you've committed to. And I know you don't want that. And typically the response is, thank you, right? Like,
Mm,
thank you for taking the energy to do that, rather than, oh, you've misunderstood me, or, oh, I'm being attacked.
right.
So it is strategic in terms of the amount of energy expenditure and risk.
Mhm,
The
mhm,
queen, I mean, the queen in the hive is protected, right? Without her, a lot of things can't happen. And I do think there's a quality of strategy and protection to
mhm,
not engage in a foolhardy way in battle or risk,
mhm,
um, and to be effective, to bring about the the new. In appreciative inquiry, we talk about the possible desirable future based on a reliable past, not based on illusion, but based on what we know to be true. So if I know you, and so if I said to you, Margit, I know you for 35 years, I know you, and I saw you a moment ago or whenever, right? Being out of sync with who you are. That's a reliable past
mhm,
to the possible desirable future. Not, I want you to be someone that you're not.
mhm,
Um, and just believe me that this is who you should be and I have authority over you. It's not that.
mhm.
Yeah, so there's a
A lot
there's a
of,
humility there.
yeah, humility and respect for the humanity, you know. Um,
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's a deep trust in being in the other,
mm,
deep trust in how each person brings wholeness, brings an element to the wholeness. So I'm moving away from someone needs to be different than they are. Someone needs to not be who they are. That's
mhm,
And so even to the point of those that I don't have enough common ground with to build coalition, to have some sense of faith or connection to the role they're playing is functional, maybe not desirable to me, but functional. And if they could see me the same way, they would see that we are collaborating. It's not coalition, but it is collaboration. We're
mm.
collaborating on bringing about a possible future, and we have a role to play.
This brings me to the spiritual angle on the Queen, with the Trillium Awakening work that is a big part of my lens. You know, that frame, the trust in being, trust in what's arising. Uh, so the easing up of the resistance to what is and softening to be available and in relationship to what is. And at the level you talk about levels of reality, you know, and sort of the absolute level of reality, things are exactly the way they need to be. I can't, there's nothing in me that, there's places that have preferences, but I can't say that this shouldn't be happening or you
Right.
shouldn't be the way that you are. So the way I conceive of uh, being able to activate queen energy more fully is leaning into that trust while paradoxically at the same time aiming for the, you know, the better possible future and
Hmm.
and standing for that possibility, but without the urgency of saying, and this is where I think unawakened activism gets hooked. It's the fight against reality, and it's got to be this other way. So,
Right. So I think there's a way in that in the queen path to grieve, to feel the horror,
mm,
to have the bandwidth for the pain and the anguish and the recognition of dehumanization, devastation. And inside that, still seeing the emergence of a possible future and an accountable humanity, an
Mm,
accountable uh, claiming the readiness for what is needed now. So that claiming, that's part of that claiming. It's not efforting towards it, but recognizing it in the even in the context of the horror.
mm,
Um, I'm kind of a sucker for post-apocalyptic stories. I think you and I have talked about it a little bit, but I love the book The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It's
mm,
post-apocalyptic. I don't know if you've read it, but so beautiful. It's beautiful from word one. It's just written with such beauty. And I'm not sure how to connect it in terms of the story itself, but it's a father and a son journeying in the post-apocalyptic
mm,
devastated world with terrible danger and um, but how I see the queen in that is recognizing that in those bleak moments there still is, as long as there's breath, until there is nothing, and there will never be nothing because nothing doesn't exist because there will always be something, um, that there is the best of, let's say, humans, or the best of a possible relationship between a father and a son comes through
mm,
moment by moment as they walk, as they journey, as they survive. And will they survive? It's a very big question because possibly everything's over in the world. So why stick around?
mm,
I think the queen says, I think it's the queen's realm yet. That devastated zone is the queen's realm still. That as long as there's a breath to take, as long as there is another step in the journey, and as long as there is a sense of a journey, uh, because why are they going anywhere? A little bit.
mm,
The queen archetype to me is there, claiming that realm and trusting in its beauty. And there's a little bit of Buto here too, a dance form that I've explored. Um, when the devastation has come and there's nothing left but bones,
mm,
is there still a dance to do? Is there still a dance? And there is. And there's beauty there. So the queen, I think, claims those devastated realms
mm,
and sees the dignity and beauty in them, and that there is still a kind of life there, a vital, bleak vitality.
mm,
So when people say, "Oh, my terrible diagnosis that I got that was terminal, it's the best thing that ever happened to me."
mm.
Um, I see the queen there,
Interesting. Yeah.
not the crone. Yeah, no, I see the queen.
Interesting. Well, it reminds me of a medicine journey I did no, it was actually earlier this year, I think, where um, there's this beautiful version of Ave Maria by a woman named Ashana with crystal bowls, and it's a like 10-minute long piece. It's
Mm,
one of the most beautiful pieces of music I know of, and what happened imaginally during that song, I ended up playing it a couple times, was like a historical visitation of mass slaughter, like medieval, like Game of Thrones kind of battlefields of bodies and limbs and decapitated heads and yet singing, I saw so clearly that the divine feminine, it was Mother Mary in the song in my imagery, was witnessing all of it all the time. And I had this profound realization: she is undiminishable.
right.
She can, she doesn't necessarily want to bear it, but she
But she
can.
can't.
She's there. She's witnessing the most atrocious thing imaginable and witnessing, being, holding, singing, humming her vibration in the midst of all of that.
Yeah, I have an image of the layers there of the mother aspect of Mary tending with her witness, tending, softening the pain,
Mm,
you know, she's right there. She's holding, the ones who are suffering the carnage. She's like physically holding them and co-experiencing their pain.
mm,
And then there is the queen singing, holding the mother, so the mother can bear. So those layers.
mm. Thank you for that. Mm.
Yeah, and she the one who's singing is not in anguish.
No, she's
My
not.
my doctor, Robin Moore, who's a wizard, she's very wonderful, science-based person and a great, just very wise. She taught me through periods of intense physical chronic pain. She taught me about how you can't sing and feel the pain the same way, that when you're singing, your receptors for pain are altered and you can change your relationship to the pain. It doesn't take the pain away, but it changes the relationship to the pain. And she told me a story of someone getting hurt in a hike and having to be carried out. And, there was nothing else to do but carry them out. And they're in agony. And so they were all singing.
Mm,
And they, were able to support the person who was hurt with the singing. And to the extent the person who was hurt could, they also were singing. And it's true, if I'm in pain and I can access singing, chanting, sounding, any version of that, the vibrational experience of that changes how my body as a physical instrument of resonance, how my body perceives the pain, how I perceive my body's pain, all of that. And so there's something about the queen in that.
mm,
Um, and the pain of the world, the pain of the body, the pain of the world, is incessant, right? And for those of us with chronic pain, it's always there,
mm,
always there. I can always find it. Um, but there is a bigger container or a bigger witness layer. So I don't know to what extent my chronic pain has changed and to what extent I have grown bigger around it.
mm, mm.
I think both are true, and I think I have better medicine, all of the things. But there is a dynamic there about how we host and how we hear and how we be with
Mm.
that is less about trying to make the pain better.
Yeah. Yeah, I just got the image of bridging. So it's bridging the transcendent with the material. There's something about the singing or the hum or that kind of bridges the worlds and something like that.
Yeah, and makes something possible. I mean, I think about bees and humming and
Mm,
the what they how they do what they do. They're definitely working musicality. To melt down, to recreate, to bring forth the ones that need to be brought forth, to call back the ones that have gone out. I mean, it's just, and she, the queen, I think, has quite a lot to say about what the song is and how it will be sung. So I
mm,
also think about
mm,
song as a big part of the queen
mm.
path,
Interesting.
sounding and joining and hearing and joining and claiming all of that.
Mm,
It's not neutral. It's in Spanish we say pasional, and then passionate and passional are a little different. So I don't think it's about being
mm,
in the swell of passion so much as it is to have a passion process that's affectively resonant without being lost in itself.
Mm, mm,
So it's a slight difference. And again, nothing left out, all of it is in flow. Um, but yeah, whether the relationship is to the question of justice or um, the environment and the agony around the fear and the worry, um, dimensions of race and poverty or threat, all of it. I think the way the Queen works it is presencing. And also to say, when I was in elementary school and learning about the colonial project, the Queen featured very, very large on, she sponsored the initial ships and they
mm.
were named for her. And, um, the original three ships of Columbus, La Niña, La Pinta, and Santa Maria.
Wow, yeah.
Something about that expansive shadow side of the Queen,
Mhm,
that empire making or empire sponsoring,
mm,
um, is also here.
mm.
Just observing that she can go awry in her claiming. She can start claiming in a in a way that is really problematic.
So you don't become a queen by yourself, and you don't activate the life-giving aspect without each other, without the
Yeah.
feedback, without.
Or you don't install a queen who's not developmentally a queen, because all she's going to do is expand her domain.
Mhm,
But a developmentally ready queen, and I think it goes for, the king archetype too, the ruler, you know, when those mature, when a mature archetype comes to the culture, let's put it that way.
mhm,
When the mature archetype comes to the culture and the culture can receive her, cultures can receive her, we have a very different picture than the colonial project.
mhm. I love the nuance that you bring to that and the fabric, like this fabric of the collective that you're sensing into. Um, we're just about, I feel we're coming to the wrapping up place, and I'm wondering if there's anything about the crone. So I know that the crone is a derogatory term. Someone else suggested wise woman. There's other words. What hints or intuitions do you have about the crone other than, the dream where you're going to stay in the cabin and not even have to go halfway, right? So, or you could riff off of that. What does that mean? I'm just curious.
It is
Developing.
it's really quite mysterious. Um, I think about um, growing smaller, but more essential.
Mhm,
Um, I think about uh, yeah, small movements
mm.
that have sonic impact.
Like homeopathy.
Yeah, homeopathy, and also going all the way to the other side of that yin yang wholeness. When I think about the symbolism of the opposites coming together, um, I want to know what's on the other side of that. So the next order polarities, I'm studying polarities and looking at the next order polarities that turn the current organization on its head completely, just what is on the other side. I think from here it looks like I've been working a little bit with the concept of monstrosity and monsters. I started making my images initially. I was calling them monsters, and I realized they're they started out more monstrous and then they got pretty, they kind of started getting prettified. I couldn't really tolerate staying in the monstrous. If you look at my images and you look at the early ones versus the later ones, they've grown more conventional as I've worked with them, and I'm not really stopping where I would stop. I would just start to make the image, and it would be more um, hard to look at. And I think I think the crone was speaking to me then
Mm,
in these ugly monsters um, that I don't have the ability to stay in companionship with them now, but I imagine a time when I will. Um, Gathering up, the petrified shit of the previous times and making jewelry with that. So there's some things, I have some hints,
mm,
but nowhere near enough clarity about her. And I also don't think we're ready for her as a
mm.
Ooh, baby. I am curious though if some of the things that could accelerate in a troubling direction might call her in.
Mm, mm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, Sharon Blackie in her book Haggitude talks about the trickster archetype, the old woman as trickster. There's truth teller, there's trickster. Um, and then later, as she talks closer to Crone, there is this collection of bones, and it's the hut. And um, yeah, there's some beautiful imagery that you're echoing in there, and just very curious to see what.
Well, I think about I think we've heard this in various um, war-torn places, but I'm thinking about the older women making the soldiers ill, not to kill them, but to incapacitate their warrior. Um, feeding them. They were hungry and they were fed, and they were fed intentionally to a degree of toxicity to where they would not be harmed ultimately, but really incapacitating those forces of destruction. I don't see the queen doing that. I see the crone doing that.
Hmm,
The
interesting.
queen may send her own love warriors or whoever, but I think the crone will just put something in the water.
Uh, anything feels left unsaid, or a point you want to go?
I mean, I just have, so many images coming, um the tapestry images and the floral, particularly roses, uh imagery of the thorniness of the queen and the regalness of the flowers and again and the toxicity and ability to call in um what is needed. Just a lot of that is kind of hovering around all around your head, not so much from from your background, but just as I see you, surrounded by the beauty and the way that beauty collaborates with you to craft. You mentioned in your card that you're making mandalas in some new way, and um, that those portals, the mandala portals.
Oh, they're
Uh,
definitely portals. But I can imagine doing a collage of the queen, right? That would be quite an interesting process.
yes. And then to mandala that and kaleidoscope that, which is the only way to look at it, really, um, is to not be able to see it, right? You look at it, but you can't see it. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I feel like this conversation has a year's worth of contemplation that can branch out, or many territories to grow into. And thank you, thank you, thank you so much.
Thank you. It's always so sweet to be with you.
All right. Bye for now.